I spent 21 years of my life in the United States Navy. My career started in Orlando, Florida, at boot camp, where you learn all the basics about the Navy. After boot camp was over, I went to Great Lakes, Illinois, where I learned to be a machinist mate, which is what I was for about 15 years. The first ship I was assigned to was the USS Julius A. Fuhrer, DEG number 6. It was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was in overhaul in the shipyard. And basically I overhauled a lot of valves, cleaned bilges, painted, and things like that. I was there just to wait for my billet in nuclear power school to open. In May of 1975, I started the toughest school I've ever been to, Nuclear Power School in Bainbridge, Maryland. They started out with some basics to teach us how to use a slide rule and some basic math. And then we went into chemistry and physics, nuclear theory, and everything we needed to know in order to operate a reactor plant. It was very tough. After learning all the basics, we were all sent to different prototypes. I was a submarine volunteer, so I went to one of the submarine prototypes, S1C, in Windsor, Connecticut. And there we actually operated a reactor. We had people teach us how to operate all the systems. And if I thought nuclear power school was tough, this was even tougher. And when we were done, we were qualified to go to a ship and operate reactor plants. Since I was a sub-volunteer and had qualified to operate reactors in a submarine prototype, the Navy, in its infinite wisdom, sent me to an aircraft carrier. I was on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower pre-com unit, which means that it was the ship was not finished; it was being built, and I got there in July of 1976. It was later commissioned in October of 1977, and we did all the initial sea trials, and got it ready to go into the fleet. I was on board the Eisenhower for a little over 4 years, left in October of 1980 during the hostage crisis in Iran. After leaving the Eisenhower, I went back to the prototype that I learned on, the submarine prototype, and I was an instructor there for almost 4 years. And at the end of my time there, I was a chief petty officer in the U.S. Navy. And then I was stationed in Italy at a place called La Maddalena on the USS Orion, which was a submarine tender. And I did that for 2 years, and I was in nuclear repair. So anytime one of the submarines in the Mediterranean had an issue with its reactor plant, they came to La Maddalena, and I would write a procedure and then do all the planning, buy the parts, and then coordinate the repairs on the submarines. So that was a very interesting job. My next command was on the USS Carl Vinson. Carl Vinson was stationed in the San Francisco area, so back to aircraft carriers. While on board, I was qualified as an enlisted surface warfare specialist, and I also received the commission as a chief warrant officer. My first job as an officer in the United States Navy was as the assistant radiological controls officer on the USS Fulton, another submarine tender. And did that from 1988 to 1991. While on board the Fulton, I qualified as officer to deck underway and surface warfare officer. It turns out I was the last person on board the Fulton, last person from the crew. In October of 1991, the Fulton was transferred to Norfolk Naval Shipyard for disposal, and since I was then the radiological controls officer, I had to go along because I had custody of all the radioactive systems. Next, I was stationed at Naval Submarine School in Groton, Connecticut, and there I got my very first job in safety. When they told me I was going to be the safety officer, I said, "I'm going to do what?" But it turned out that that was what my career was going to be for the rest of my life. The last job I had in the Navy was as a chief engineer of a floating dry dock, which was just a big tank that sank down into the water. Then a submarine would come into it, and then we would pump all the water out and raise a submarine up high and dry. Another very interesting job. When I was finished with that job, I retired, and that is the end of my Navy career.